My entitled twin had our parents disown me for siding with her ex. Now she's cutting them off because they can't fund her $90,000 wedding. About 3 years ago, my twin sister cut me off completely and convinced our parents to do the same. And honestly, the reason behind it all was unbelievably stupid. To give a little background, my sister Emma was going through a divorce at the time. This was 3 years back. Her husband, Kevin, just so happened to be one of my closest friends. We'd been tight since college. Funny enough, they only met because of me. Kevin and I were buddies way before he and Emma ever became a thing. Now, even though Kevin and I were close, Emma and I didn't exactly have the warmest sibling bond. We're twins, born just 16 minutes apart, but growing up, she was always treated like the family's little princess. I guess being the only daughter had something to do with that. Meanwhile, I was the son, and that seemed to mean I got the stricter end of the parenting stick. That favoritism created a quiet resentment in me over the years. Emma could get away with just about anything, and more often than not, she did. She was spoiled, plain and simple, and that bratty behavior made it hard for me to get along with her. Anyway, I still remember the time my parents posted a family Christmas photo on social media. Both Emma and I were in it, and since I was tagged, it showed up on my profile. Kevin saw the picture and immediately asked me who she was, said he was pretty much head over heels just from that one photo. At first, I kept brushing him off. I told him it probably wasn't a great idea. But after a couple of weeks of him not letting it go, I figured, hey, why not at least run it by Emma? Even though we weren't close, Kevin was a good guy, and if he wanted to shoot his shot, I wasn't going to stand in his way. So I talked to Emma, asked if she'd be okay with me giving her number to a friend of mine. She didn't seem to mind, so I passed it along, and the two of them started dating. They got together during our first year of college and stayed a couple for 6 years before getting engaged. And you know what? I was genuinely happy for them. Emma had even become slightly easier to be around because of Kevin, which was a nice surprise. When they tied the knot, I was the best man. I meant it when I said I was happy for both of them. Unfortunately, the marriage only lasted 2 years before it all fell apart. And it wasn't just any breakup, it was messy. Emma, being Emma, cheated on him. For no real reason either. From what I could tell, she seemed content in the marriage. But still, she had an affair with some coworker, and Kevin found out after going through her phone. When he confronted her, she brushed it off like it was no big deal, said she was just bored, that the affair didn't mean anything, and she was ready to move on and fix things. But come on, some things can't just be swept under the rug like that. Kevin chose to walk away, and I don't blame him one bit. What made it worse was Emma had the nerve to ask for alimony, despite having a job and being the one who cheated. She didn't even qualify for it, but that didn't stop her from trying. The whole situation got really ugly. Naturally, I sided with Kevin. He was my friend, and even if Emma was my sister, she was the one who broke her vows. Plus, it's not like we had a strong sibling bond to begin with. So for me, it was a clear choice. Apparently, Emma didn't take that well. She ran crying to our parents and told them she didn't like that I was still friends with her soon-to-be ex. She insisted that as family, I should have stood behind her, no questions asked. And for some reason, my parents actually agreed with her. They invited me over for dinner one night, and it turned into some sort of intervention. They sat me down and told me they wanted me to cut Kevin out of my life, saying he had betrayed our family and I needed to take a stand. I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. I told them straight up Kevin had been my friend for years, and I wasn't about to drop him just because Emma screwed up. If he'd been the one to cheat, sure, I would have re-evaluated things. But that wasn't the case, and I wasn't going to pretend otherwise just to make my sister feel better. Emma was sitting right there during this whole conversation, and of course, she lost it. She started accusing me of always being jealous of her, of trying to sabotage her life on purpose so she wouldn't get anything out of the divorce. That hit a nerve, and I snapped back. I told her she didn't deserve anything, not after what she did. I called her out for being a cheater with no sense of morals or integrity. Things got pretty heated, and I ended up storming out early. I figured my parents would call me a day or two later to cool things down, but when they did reach out, it was only to tell me they were cutting me off. Apparently, Emma had issued them an ultimatum, either they stopped speaking to me, or she'd cut them out too. And they took her side. After that fight, she told them I had no concept of family loyalty, and that I needed to be taught a lesson. So they chose her. Honestly, I wasn't even surprised. When they called to tell me, they sounded all disappointed, like I was the one who had betrayed them. They even said I could fix everything by just dropping Kevin. But by then, it wasn't just about Kevin, it was about standing by what's right. So I told them goodbye and wished them well. Haven't talked to them since. It's been 3 years now. Kevin and I are still best friends. I haven't said a word to Emma or my parents in all that time. We occasionally run into each other, but we pretend not to notice. It still stings sometimes, knowing my parents picked her over me, but that's just the way it played out. And honestly, I didn't expect to ever hear from them again. But recently, they reached out. Unfortunately, they didn't reach out to apologize. Nope, it was all about asking for help. You see, not too long ago, my business really started booming. I own a restaurant, and after a glowing review from a well-known food blogger went viral, things took off like wildfire. The place started filling up every day, and it's honestly been a blessing these past few months. Business has never been better. Somehow, my parents caught wind of my recent success. I guess they crunched the numbers and decided I was doing well enough to hit up for money. But the wildest part? They didn't even need the money for themselves. They wanted it for Emma. Apparently, she's getting married again. Yep, you read that right. I guess she wasn't entirely honest with Kevin about that coworker she'd been having the affair with, because surprise, that's who she's marrying now. From what I've gathered, they've been together ever since her divorce. They got engaged a few months ago, and while I did hear about it, I knew I wouldn't be invited, so I didn't think much of it. Fast forward to about 4 days ago, my parents showed up at my door. I was genuinely shocked to see them. But they were polite and civil, so I went ahead and let them in. I didn't slam the door because, 1, I'm not that kind of person, and 2, I made the rookie mistake of assuming they were finally there to make amends. That one's on me. We did the usual small talk, how's the restaurant, how's life, before they finally got to the real reason for their visit. Emma wants her second wedding to be a grand, over-the-top celebration. She's hoping people will forget her first wedding even happened and remember only this one. That sounded exactly like something she'd do, so I wasn't the least bit surprised. Then came the kicker, the budget. My parents told me the wedding Emma had in mind was going to cost at least $90,000. That's right. She's planning a full-blown luxury wedding. And we are not a luxury wedding kind of family. My dad was a realtor before he retired, and my mom taught history at a local college. They both earned decent livings and had saved up responsibly for retirement, but dropping 90 grand on a wedding? That's just plain unrealistic. They admitted the wedding was still months away, and they could pitch in a bit from their retirement fund, but covering the whole cost? Not a chance. Emma's fiancé's family had already backed out, saying they couldn't contribute, which left my parents in a bind. The thing is, they had already promised Emma they'd take care of the whole thing before she revealed her lavish budget. Now they didn't know how to backpedal without disappointing her. So what did they do? They started brainstorming, and apparently, someone told them my restaurant was doing well. They took that as a sign from the universe and decided to show up and ask me for help with the wedding fund. They went on to say that this wedding meant the world to Emma. After her split with Kevin, she supposedly had to go through therapy because the whole thing was so traumatizing. And now, according to them, I had a golden opportunity to be a good brother and step up for once. They reminded me that the last time Emma came to me for something, I refused. And that's what led to the 3-year silence. Now, they said, I could make up for that by footing the bill for her second wedding. I'm not even going to lie, I honestly thought they were joking at first. I even laughed. Loudly. Right in their faces. I couldn't believe they had the nerve to show up after all this time, ask me for money, and act like I was the one who had wronged them by cutting ties with the family. So after I had my little laugh, I told them straight up even if I had Jeff Bezos' money, I still wouldn't give a single cent toward Emma's wedding. That didn't go over well. My parents got visibly offended and instead of leaving gracefully, they started picking a fight with me. They told me there was nothing funny about the situation and said Emma had been right all along, that I had no sense of family loyalty. They claimed that here I was, being handed a chance to make things right with my sister on a silver platter, and I was still refusing to take it. And then they pulled out the same old accusation, that I was jealous and insecure and being incredibly petty. Now, hearing that from Emma? I'd expect it. She's always lived in her own little bubble. But hearing it from my parents? That hit a nerve. They knew exactly what they'd done over the years, and for them to act like I was the problem pushed me over the edge. So I let it out. I told them they had no right to point fingers at me when they were the ones who had created this mess in the first place. I reminded them how differently they had treated the two of us growing up, how they coddled Emma while expecting me to tough it out and be the strong one. I said they had failed as parents. They were the reason Emma had grown into someone who could look her own aging parents in the eye and demand a $90,000 wedding like it was nothing. And now here they were, scrambling to clean up her mess again, only this time, they didn't even have their son on their side to bail them out. I told them maybe they thought they had one child who still cared, but if Emma truly gave a damn about them, she wouldn't be asking them to empty their retirement savings for one single day of showing off. If she had any sense, she'd sit down, crunch the numbers, and realize that a moderately successful realtor and a retired professor can't afford that kind of wedding. But she didn't care. Not about the money. Not about them. Just about getting what she wanted. Emma has always put herself first, and honestly, I stopped feeling like I needed to care about our parents, because let's be real, they never really cared about me. So when you think about it, the fact that they ended up with 2 kids who don't give a damn about them? That's on them. They made their own bed. After I said that, my mom burst into tears, and my dad cussed me out before storming out of my place with her. In that moment, I didn't feel even a shred of guilt. I was too angry to feel anything else. But a few hours ago, I got a text from my dad. He told me he was heartbroken and disappointed in me, that what I said had devastated him, and my mom was in terrible shape because of it. And now I'm stuck with this weird feeling. On one hand, I think they absolutely had it coming. But on the other hand, I can't lie, I'm feeling kind of guilty. Like maybe I took it too far. I don't know, it's confusing. So I figured I'd ask, am I the jerk for telling my parents they raised 2 kids who don't care about them, and it's their own fault? Update 1. Hey everyone, after reading through a bunch of your comments and thinking it over, I realized something. You're right. I don't actually have anything to feel bad about. I'm just the kind of person who feels things deeply, and maybe that's why guilt hit me so hard after what I said. But the truth is, they did deserve it. It's been a week since that conversation, and I've officially blocked them. I'm done. What's funny is that my dad had me blocked for 3 whole years, didn't check in on me even once, but suddenly unblocked me just to send that guilt trip text. That really says a lot about the kind of people they are. So yeah, I replied and told him the truth. I don't care about them. Not anymore. And that's the most honest thing I could have said. A lot of people were asking if Kevin knows Emma is getting remarried. Yeah, he found out when she posted her engagement online a few months ago. That's how he learned about it. He's totally fine with it now. The divorce was brutal on both of them, and I think it took a heavy toll, but it also helped him move on completely. He stayed single for a while after everything went down, but started dating again last year. He's doing well, really well, and we still make time to hang out every other weekend or so. I told him about my parents dropping by to ask me for money for Emma's second wedding, and even he agreed that I did the right thing by turning them down. We had a good laugh over how Emma apparently needed therapy after the divorce, because as far as we remember, she was the one spreading lies to paint Kevin as the villain. Also, she could get alimony and justify her affair. Honestly, I have no clue what she needed therapy for. If anything, she was the one traumatizing everyone else. So yeah, I've decided to keep my distance from my parents, just like before. Going no contact is the healthiest thing I can do for myself. I really hope they don't try to reach out again, because I want no part in any of this drama anymore. Update 2. So, about 2 weeks ago, my parents showed up at my place unannounced. That conversation didn't go well at all, and afterward, I blocked them. I thought that would be the end of it. But today, they reached out again, this time from a number I didn't recognize. Probably a burner phone. I was at work and juggling a bunch of stuff when the call came in, so without thinking, I picked up, assuming it was something important. The second I heard my dad's voice on the line, I was ready to hang up. Before I could, though, he told me he was standing right outside my restaurant and had to talk to me. He said he was desperate and needed to see me for just a quick coffee, said he couldn't leave without speaking to me. I tried to explain that I was working and couldn't just step out, but he insisted he was fine waiting as long as it took. He sounded frantic, and I started to worry he might cause a scene inside the restaurant if I didn't go out and talk to him. The last thing I needed was a meltdown in front of my staff and customers. So, reluctantly, I agreed. I couldn't focus on work anyway, I was too frustrated. I took a break and headed over to the coffee shop nearby where he said he'd be. When I walked in and saw him sitting there, I went straight to the point. I told him it wasn't okay for him to show up at my workplace like that. You don't get to harass your kid at work just because you want money. But then he surprised me, he said he wasn't there to talk about money. He was there because of my mother. He told me that ever since our last conversation, she hadn't been the same. 2 full weeks had gone by, and she was still emotionally wrecked, barely talking, barely functioning. He said she had become a shadow of herself, and the only thing that could help now was if I agreed to visit her and have a conversation. I have to admit, he looked genuinely upset. And I was torn. I didn't want to cause pain on purpose, but at the same time, I couldn't ignore the fact that she hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. Not once. Not a text. Not a call. After thinking it over, I told him the truth. I didn't have time to go visit her. And even if I did, I wasn't sure what he expected me to say. Because I couldn't lie and pretend I forgave them. I don't. And I can't forgive them, not when they've never even said sorry. My dad started getting visibly agitated when I told him I wasn't going to visit my mom. He kept insisting that she was in terrible emotional shape, all because of what I'd said the other day about how neither of their kids cared about them. To be fair, my mom has always been an extremely sensitive person. It didn't take much to upset her, even when we were little. The whole family kind of tiptoed around her, careful with our words like we were walking on eggshells. And sure, I can agree that she's fragile emotionally, but so am I. And if she's allowed to hold on to hurt, then I should be allowed the same. I tried explaining that to my dad, but he didn't want to hear it. He just kept saying that for once, I needed to put everything aside and go visit her because she had completely fallen apart. But at that point, we were just going in circles. So finally, I told him firmly that I wasn't going to see anyone unless and until both of them apologized to me. And even then, I'd need time to think it over. They hadn't spoken to me in 3 years. And honestly, even before that, they didn't treat me all that well. So it's been really hard, near impossible, to view them the way I used to or feel anything close to affection toward them. I've built a whole life for myself without them in it, and they never showed the slightest interest in that life until they wanted something from me. More specifically, my money. It felt incredibly unfair that they expected me to suddenly bury everything and play happy family just because my mom was upset. I reminded him that I had been upset too, crushed, even when they chose to cut me off. But back then, they didn't care. They never reached out, never checked in, never asked if I was okay. So I told him I wasn't going to visit her, and I meant it. I added that I was busy, and if he ever showed up at my workplace again or tried to pull something similar, I'd have no choice but to call the police. And not just at work, I didn't want them showing up at my home either. I made it clear, I was serious, and I wanted no more surprise visits. After that, I left and went back to the restaurant. I had a lot on my plate that day, and I honestly expected he might try something else before it was over. Thankfully, that didn't happen. I don't know what comes next, but honestly, I'm exhausted. I regret ever opening the door that day and letting them back in, even for a second. Update 3. Hey again. So I'm back, but this time, the drama isn't directly from my parents. Well, technically it is, but not in the usual way. Even though I've been estranged from my immediate family for the past 3 years, I've stayed on good terms with my extended family. All my relatives know about the falling out with my parents and sister. Most of them chose to stay out of it, which I respected. They've handled it by inviting me and my parents separately to family events like birthdays, weddings, and holidays, just to keep the peace. Recently, one of my cousins announced she was pregnant, and I noticed that my parents weren't invited to her celebration party. Curious, I asked her about it, and she told me it had nothing to do with me. She had actually had an argument with Emma a couple of weeks before the party. Apparently, after the pregnancy announcement went up online, Emma accused her of trying to steal her thunder since her wedding was just a few months away. Yes, seriously, Emma actually believed our cousin got pregnant on purpose just to outshine her. It was so absurd that my cousin decided to cut ties with Emma entirely. She wasn't going to put up with that kind of negativity while pregnant, can you blame her? Naturally, my parents jumped to Emma's defense and contacted my cousin's parents, accusing her of being dramatic and selfish for celebrating her own pregnancy while Emma's wedding was around the corner. So, my cousin decided she wasn't inviting any of them. That left me as the only member from our immediate family who was invited, and even though that decision had nothing to do with me, they still blamed me. My parents went online and posted a statement, claiming they had kept quiet for years about my supposed jealousy and insecurity toward Emma. They said they didn't want to ruin my reputation before, but since I was apparently turning the rest of the family against them, they felt forced to speak out. They twisted the story, made it sound like the reason they weren't invited was because of me, and accused me of continuing to be friends with Kevin just to spite Emma. Of course, they left out the part where she cheated on him. Instead, they portrayed Kevin as someone who ruined her mental health during the divorce and painted me as the villain for staying in touch with him. They ended the post by calling me a self-absorbed, insecure loser and said they were glad they no longer had to call me their son. They announced that they were officially disowning me. I wish I could say I cared, but I honestly don't. A bunch of people sent me screenshots of the post since I'm still blocked, and I told them not to bother arguing on my behalf. Anyone who actually knows me isn't buying any of that nonsense anyway. If they want to talk trash, let them. I'm done playing their game. That said, I'm incredibly thankful for the family members who've quietly supported me. Most of them have decided to keep their distance from my parents and Emma, and honestly, I think that's for the best. Update 4. Hey everyone, just wanted to give a final update since a few months have passed. After my parents posted that online rant blaming me for everything, most of our relatives stopped talking to them altogether. I'm sure they tried to spin it as my fault too, but at that point, it didn't matter. Their bridges were already burned. I've been doing great, by the way. Business is solid, and life's been peaceful without their drama. But here's the kicker, I recently found out from a few relatives, ones who are still in touch with my parents, that Emma has now cut them off too. Yep, apparently they didn't even go to her wedding. Naturally, people were curious and started asking why. Turns out, my parents finally told Emma that her wedding budget was way out of reach for them. They explained that they simply couldn't afford it anymore, not with retirement looming and no steady income. Emma didn't take that well. She lost it, accused them of breaking their promise, and decided she didn't want them at her wedding at all. Her fiancé's family ended up footing the bill, but the whole thing had to be scaled down significantly. Emma, being Emma, didn't seem bothered by her parents' absence. But from what I've heard, my parents are absolutely heartbroken over it. They're crushed that neither of their kids seems to care about them. And honestly, that's exactly what I said in the beginning. All of this just goes to show you can't run from karma forever. Sooner or later, it catches up to you. My parents got hit by it, and I've got a feeling Emma's turn is coming soon. In the meantime, I'm doing just fine. Good luck to them.